So London Irish were robbed in their Gallagher Premiership West London derby against Harlequins, with the incident which happened towards the end of that game, just before Harlequins went on to score the game-winning try. Irish were robbed, weren't they? Weren't they? Seems to be the prevailing opinion. That's what I want to get into in this video. I think there's definitely a conversation to be had, and let's have it. Thank you very much for watching. I'm Tim. This is Egg Chasers, and the videos are going to be coming thick and fast. So if you haven't already, hit subscribe, hit the little notification bell, and I would love to get your thoughts, which is what the comments are for. So do chip them in on this video where we talk about this particular incident. London Irish in the Gallagher Premiership, 24 points to 21 up, 81 minutes on the clock. Harlequins eventually go on and score a game-winning try from a drive-in maul. However, many people feel the game should have ended at this point, when London Irish centre Bernard Janty van Rensburg and Quins replacement lock Charlie Matthews are competing for a ball in the air, and many people feel, as Andy Gooch strongly believes in this little reaction to it, that there was foul play and it was a clear case of a wrong decision by the officiating team on the way. Andy Gooch saying, game-deciding moment here, and the ref and TMO got this completely wrong. How is this not a penalty and a yellow or red card? London Irish will be raging. Well, yeah, he's absolutely right on that. There were lots of people who had very strong reactions to this, as strong as saying that not only was this decision wrong, but that this is part of a greater conspiracy to deny London Irish league points, which clearly is ridiculous and massively over the top. But I think the reaction, I'm going to say even the reaction of Andy Good was over the top. And there's two words I want to pick up on in Goody's tweet right there, and that is where he says that the decision was completely wrong. Completely wrong. So what Goody's saying is that if this incident happens 10 times in a game, 10 times it should be given a penalty, and you cannot make a case for why the referee, Craig Maxwell-Keys, and his TMO, Claire Hodnett, came to the decision that they came to between them, that this was a rugby incident and therefore the game should be allowed to play on. There is no case to be made for that decision, and it is completely wrong. More than that, not just a penalty, there should be a card involved, right? Well, I think if I saw this incident in a game, in fact, let's just have a look at the incident before we go any further. Right. Well, I'll play it a couple of times. So if you haven't seen it, here we go. I think Andre Esterhazen has just thrown the ball back in field to try and keep the ball alive. That's led to Bernard Janty van Rensburg of London Irish and Charlie Matthews competing for the ball. This angle looks really bad. Janty van Rensburg lands awkwardly. He ends up going off for a head injury assessment. They're both competing for the ball. You can see just take it back a little bit. I think what's relevant to say is that Janty van Rensburg gets there first, gets his two hands on the ball. Charlie Matthews at this point, his left hand is on or very, very close to the ball. And if you wind it on, his right hand there is very, very close to the ball, if not on it as well. But van Rensburg manages to get the ball. Charlie Matthews has contact. The Irish player lands awkwardly. Are you watching this and honestly saying, as Andy Good is, that 100% of the time this should be a penalty and a card, potentially? You may well think that on balance, this should be a penalty more often than not. And if you saw this in a game, you might expect, how many times would this be given as a penalty? I could say, yeah, definitely 4, maybe 5, possibly 6 or 7 times. 10 times out of 10, 100% of the time, with no case to be made for the decision that was arrived at? No way. And this is the issue I have. It's hard enough being a referee, let alone when genuinely debatable decisions are treated as binary black and white. And it's part of the problem with social media and Twitter and such, and the reaction that people have to it, where that's just the kind of way it goes. And I was thinking about this. Okay, if you're going to come to the conclusion that this is absolutely foul play, definitely penalty, possibly a card, what laws are you saying have been infringed? What are the laws? And I've taken a look at World Rugby, and I'm trying to make the case. And so let's have a look at the law for dangerous play, which says players must not do anything that is reckless or dangerous to others, including, and the one that's pertinent here is, including jumping into another player. Players must not do anything that is reckless or dangerous, including jumping into a player. And people could make the argument that that's what's happening here. Charlie Matthews is jumping into his opponent. I think that's a harsh standard to try and meet on this particular occasion. And I'll clarify why I say that when we look at a different bit of information. The World Rugby Guidelines, which were tried to add a bit of clarity to this particular issue where two players are trying to compete for a ball in the air, and World Rugby say for a yellow card, 3 things have to happen. 1, the player competing for the ball is not in a realistic position to gather it. 2, there is contact made in the air, and or with the player that's in the air. And 3, the opponent lands on their back or their side. That is the threshold for a yellow card. Threshold for a red card is not in a realistic position to gather the ball, reckless or deliberate foul play, and the player lands in a dangerous position. So we're talking like landing on their shoulder or on their head. We can rule out a red card, surely, can't we, for this incident? Because the player lands on his side, as per the yellow card, and it's not reckless and deliberate foul play, is it? So I think we can, let's just agree, this is not a red card decision. You may well feel a card should come out and the colour should be yellow. If that's the case, let's have a look. Charlie Matthews, to meet the threshold for a yellow card, would have to have been not in a realistic position to gather the ball, made contact, and caused his opponent to land on their back or side. Now, working backwards from that, we can say absolutely the player lands on his back or his side. Yep, tick. He does make contact in the air. So the third one is he in a realistic position to gather the ball? Let's just have a little look again. Is Charlie Matthews in a realistic position to gather the ball? Is Charlie Matthews in a realistic position to gather the ball? Absolutely, yes. Does he make contact in the air? Yes. Does the player land on his back or side? Yes. But the threshold is not met for a yellow card because Charlie Matthews is in a position to gather the ball. That's the decision that the referee and the TMO came to. And I can understand it. And that's all I'm trying to say here, that surely there is a shade of grey and you can understand why that decision was arrived at. If you think it should be just a penalty, tell me, what is the infringement? Because I've just shown you the dangerous play one. I've just shown you the competing for a ball in the air one. What is the infringement? Now, had this been given a penalty and yellow card and the referee had said you weren't in a realistic position to gather the ball, you made contact and he landed on his side, I might not have disagreed with it. I can understand it. And that's all really I think we have to look at when we come to refereeing decisions, is to say, can we understand the reason why the referee and or TMO and the officiating team came to the decision that they came to? And I think the answer in the case of Craig Maxwell Keys in this decision is, yes, you can understand why he arrived at the decision he arrived at. You may disagree, but you can understand it. And therefore, any talk of it being completely wrong and any talk of it being some kind of conspiracy is, surely, you've got to agree with that at least, is over the top. And we can have a nuanced discussion about any particular incident. And I think what's more important as well is we talk about consistency. And I have to say, I think Premiership referees are the best in the business. Can they get better? Of course they can. Should we strive for more? Absolutely. However, Premiership referees are the best in the business. And across this 80 minutes, Craig Maxwell Keys showed what I think we're all after, which is consistency. I think when you look at the yellow and red card decisions, they were spot on. And when you actually compare and contrast that decision at the end with Charlie Matthews, with the one with Ben Loader for London Irish in the first half, I think you can draw a line of consistency across the 80 minutes. Another referee might have come to a different decision, but you'd like to think that if they came to a different decision for one incident, they'd come to a different decision for another incident. Craig Maxwell Keys, I think, deserves credit for showing that consistency in a pressure cauldron of a tough Gallagher Premiership West London derby. And I think if we're going to focus on anything, the focus should be on the bravery of Harlequins. Let's not forget, London Irish on about 72, 73 minutes took 3 points to go 24-21 up. And with 84 minutes on the clock, Harlequins had a penalty, could have taken the tie, kicked for the corner, went for it, rolled the dice, and came out with a victory. And London Irish should be looking at why they didn't deal with the driving maul, why they didn't deal with the scrum that led to the penalty from which Harlequins got the driving maul, and why in the 84 minutes before that did they not deal with the opposition enough to have got the W. There's far more in their control. That's the stuff we should be focusing on, not incidents like this from an officiating team, which even if you disagree with it, you've got to be able to surely understand why the decision was arrived at, and that's all we can ask for. So that's what I think about it. You may wildly disagree. That's what the comments are for, and I'll see you on the next one.